You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi guys, welcome back to the Mighty Blue podcast. And if this intro seems a little rushed, then I can tell you that it is, although I do have an excuse. You should be listening on Thursday the 6th of March, but I'll be in the UK at that time for my kit brother's 70th birthday. So I had to record this before I flew to the UK. My plan was to do everything yesterday, February the 26th. But on my normal morning walk, as I was on a crossing at red lights, a car came round the corner, hit me hard on my right side, threw me onto the hood of the car, and I smashed into the windscreen, caving it in. Anyway, then the momentum deposited me on the road. Jeez, it hurt. The cops and the paramedics arrived, sent me to hospital where I had x-rays and so on. I'm pleased to report that nothing is broken, but frankly, I spent the large part of yesterday in bed sleeping. I feel a bit beaten up this morning. I have a huge hematoma on the back of my leg where I was hit, and my neck and shoulder area are really sore. I'm going to be getting therapy on that when I return from the UK, so I hope it doesn't get too bad in this next week. I'm grateful that I wasn't killed, to be honest with you, but I'm pissed that I was hit. My first thought was that the Camino may be in danger, but we're just going to have to see, aren't we? Anyway, I'm recording this less than 2 hours before I leave for the airport, and I still haven't packed. Does that sound reminiscent of one or two of my through hikes? Yeah, I guess it does. So this week we have somebody whose Facebook post I really admired. So I asked her, Shelley Harris, to come on the show and talk about her AT through hike and the common sense behind the post. We'll hear from Shelley in a moment. Then we're going to catch up with both of our Mighty Blue Class of 2025 members. First up, Beth joins the party with her own gear list, which we'll be going through in this chat. Then Dave's back with our last pre-hike talk and his final thoughts before he hits the trail. We'll get our first report from the trail from Dave on March the 13th, or next week as you hear this. Then the second part of the penultimate chapter of Emily Leonard's book, Happy Hiking, where Emily and her friends do a bit of cowboy camping. But before we get to that, there's this. We're still going to be wrapping up our sponsorship with TSX Challenge, and I know that you know this. I'm actually enjoying this short addition to the podcast. It's been a good walk down memory lane for me. TSX Challenge leads guided backpacking treks for all ages and experience levels through the Sierra, Grand Canyon and beyond. And their tagline is, Inspire for a Lifetime. I like that. Now, you may think this refers to the scenery or the achievement or maybe even the great food. I know for sure that was not backpacking food we ate. I've never eaten so well on a backpacking trip. But joking aside, according to Chris Casado, friend and co-founder of TSX Challenge, it's not any of those. In his words, it's the people. When you start as strangers with different backgrounds, then leave it all behind to come together and support each other for a common goal and reach success, that is inspiring, and that lasts for a lifetime. Our promotion with TSX Challenge will be ending Sunday, March the 29th. So use code MIGHTYBLUE at checkout for 10% off. So, with a need to get a bit of a move on, here's Shelley, or Hopscotch. You know, I spend way too much time on Facebook these days. But if I didn't, you wouldn't be meeting today's guest. This is Shelley Harris, or Hopscotch. Hey Shelley, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Well, I'm good. As I say, I saw a post of yours on Facebook recently, actually. It's not very long, so I'm going to take the liberty of reading it out. By the way, when I say I'm going to take the liberty, I haven't actually asked you if I can. So if you're okay with this, I can read it out.
Yeah.
So here goes.
Hey, if it's on Facebook, it's open to the public.
and it must be true. Yeah. So here goes. For those of you planning your 2025 through hike, I have some advice. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it, rather. Don't overthink it. Don't overplan it. You don't need to be in shape. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need all the lightest gear possible. Show up with the appropriate gear and walk, walk, walk. You'll meet people. You'll figure it out. You'll do it. A Far Out app and or the AT guide is pretty much all you need. I'd never backpacked before April the 27th, 2024. I went to REI on April the 6th and got pretty much everything I needed. It was a bucket list trip for me, and it was the trip of a lifetime. I was planning for a 2-week section and decided, let's keep going. I finished on October the 4th. You will figure it out as you go along. It's a long journey. Enjoy every minute. Hopscotch. Now, my listeners will know that I'm going to want to meet that person. So this is you, Shelley. And I thought it was so simple, yet really helpful for anybody just thinking about an AT hike. We're going to return to the post at the end. But first, tell us a little bit more about yourself, particularly how the AT got under your skin.
I've wanted to do it my whole life because I live in New Hampshire and I grew up in the White Mountains and in a trail town, Gorham, New Hampshire. So if anybody's hiked the AT, they've been through Gorham.
Of course.
And I've always seen the hikers come through and I look up to them and I always love their stories. And I always wanted to be them when I grew up. So I started hiking the 4,000 footers in New Hampshire in my 20s. And when I was about 25, I started planning my AT hike. And
at 25?
At 25.
Now, because you've told me this, I realise that is more than a few years ago now. So,
Yes.
So what took you so
long? So the year I had planned to do it, like the year 2000, or 2001, that's the same year I met my husband. And we started hiking together. And then I kind of put it off because I thought maybe someday in the future we would do it together. And then it never ended up happening. So
did he not want to do it? Did he not want to do it?
Not really. He like in our 20s, like he thought it was like a good idea, but like the longer you wait and the more time went on, he really didn't want to do long distance hiking. He loves to hike, but just the thought of the whole long distance thing wasn't for him.
So you spent over 20 years trying to convince him to go, is that right?
Yes. Yes, pretty much.
Oh, dear.
And so just circumstances happened this past year in 2024 where I was given the opportunity. Some friends invited me on a section hike in the Smokies, and I was excited for the 2-week hike, and then I started thinking about it, and I decided to do the whole thing.
But at that stage, though, you know, you say that the time came up. You hadn't by then had a single night in a tent. Is that right?
Just, camping and campgrounds and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Not like backpacking, no.
So what did your family think about that? Did he, obviously your husband knew all along that's what you kind of wanted to do. Was it one of those things you thought, it's a bucket list item, I kind of would like to do it, but I know I won't really? Or did you always thought you actually would do it?
I thought I would do it. I just probably, figured I'd do it when I retired or whatever. A lot of people do it when they retire.
And you're in your early 50s, so retirement's not imminent then.
No, I wish.
Yeah. Well, you say that, but how did you get away from work?
So I'm a travel nurse and I do contract work. So I do 3-month contracts at a time. Right. So my contract just was ending at the same time my friends were doing the section hike. So the timing was perfect.
Yeah. So they wanted to go on a section hike and you kind of invited yourself along.
Yeah.
Were they set on what they were going to do? Because you went from Clingman's Dome, didn't you? So why did you pick that? Because it was in the Smokies?
They planned it. Every year they get together and they do a section. So this was just the section they were doing that year. I didn't have really anything to do with it, and I just went along for the ride. And
that was a trip from Clingman's down, going southwards, wasn't it?
Yeah, we went south to the Knock.
Right. And your husband knew about this ambition. Was he supportive of you doing this? Because I suppose a section hike isn't that, not so much is not that much. I don't mean that. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's not a long period of time to be away from home, is it? So when you went out there, were you just thinking, okay, I'm here for 2 weeks?
Um, at first it was just so this was like in March. I decided I was going to do the section hike in April.
Right.
So it was not a lot of time to plan. It was like 6 weeks in advance or something like that.
Right, right.
And so when I brought it up to my husband, he was like, "Yeah, let's do it," because we were in Virginia at the time, so it wasn't too far away that we couldn't just drive down there.
Sure, sure.
And so yeah, he was supportive. And then like probably 2 weeks into thinking about the section hike, I was like, well, right now the timing is perfect. Why don't I just keep going? So then he was like a little more concerned. He was like, well, how are we logistically gonna make this work? So he's like, I want you to do it because you've always wanted to, so let's make it happen. And we did.
Great attitude. No, it wasn't the same attitude of your mother, though, was it? She wasn't She wasn't entirely keen about you doing this, was she?
No, when I told her, she was like, "You're doing it alone?" Like she was concerned that I was going to be by myself. She's not a hiker at all, and she was worried about my safety, of course, like mothers would be. And but once she saw me with people all the time, I would keep her updated with pictures and such, and on Facebook, and she realized that I was safe out there and I was enjoying myself, and that I was fulfilling something that I always wanted to do. So that made her happy, and she's super proud of me.
You can't guarantee you're always going to be with somebody, though, can you? Were you happy about being by yourself?
Yeah, I enjoyed being by myself. I had a good mix of everything. Like I was able to be with people when I wanted to, and I was alone when I wanted to as well.
Sure, sure. And did you have any of those? I remember my first night, I've talked about it on the show before, that first night in the woods by yourself. Do you have any of those nights?
Yeah.
In fact, there's only one because it's the first night. So what was it? What was that like?
Actually, so my very first night alone by myself was actually a nightmare because it was on Max Patch.
Wow.
You probably have been up there. It's an iconic spot.
Absolutely.
And watched the sunset up there, and then started going down, and the clouds started coming in, and there was a really bad thunderstorm that night.
Wow.
And I was by myself. I thought I was gonna die. Like the thunder was and lightning around me was so loud and scary. But yeah, there was nobody around because it started raining a little bit, and I was like, I'm just gonna put my tent up here because I didn't want to get soaked because I was starting off like a 5-day section, and I didn't want everything to be wet for the next 5 days in my pack. So I was like, I'm just gonna put my tent up, and and it was like after dark anyway, so I was like, I'm just gonna stop here. So yeah, that was a scary night, but that was my first night by myself.
Was it a wet night?
Wet.
I mean, did it get wet inside your tent? Or it's kind of good to get your tent, let your tent have a test, and it worked out fine.
Yeah, it worked out fine. I didn't get wet inside at all.
And starting just 3 weeks after you've hit REI doesn't speak to a lot of planning, does it? How confident were you that you knew what you needed to know? Because one of the things you say in your post was, work out what's appropriate for you. And I can't remember what the actual words were because they're slightly higher up on my page here. But show up with the appropriate gear and walk. So how did you work out what the appropriate gear was?
I had been researching it for a very long time. I had almost completely planned my hike when I was 25. So I had all the books, I had all the research already done. And I've always followed along with the Facebook group of every year. So I kind of have whittled it down to what I, know was appropriate. And I talked to my friends who section hike every year. And I was like, okay, what are the essential gear? And then the people at REI really helped me out because both the guys who helped me pick out my pack and everything were former through hikers. So
nice.
They were like, yeah, you don't need this, you don't need that kind of thing.
So what was your gear? What was your tent? What did you take?
I got the Dragonfly Nemo. Right. I got the 2-person tent.
Definitely the way forward. One person is not the way forward, is it?
Well, I was hoping that my husband and or my dog was going to join me a few nights on the trail, so I thought a two-person would be better. But it was great for having the extra space, and it wasn't that much heavier
Yeah.
for me. Like the weight was worth it.
So
Um,
you did tell me before that your dog actually did hike with you, or walked with you part of the
yeah,
way, didn't he? So
yeah.
how'd that work out? Did he enjoy it for a start?
Oh yeah. So my dog's only a few years old, so she's got a lot of energy and she loves to hike. So um, she loved it, but I did stop hiking with her in the sections where there were a lot of snakes because I was a little worried about that. There were snakes everywhere, it seems like this summer in like especially Northern Virginia and Pennsylvania. And so I didn't hike with her in those sections. But whenever my husband was able to meet me um at the trails end that day, sometimes he would bring me the dog or I would just take the dog for the day. The
Right.
longest day I did with her was 19 miles.
Oh wow, wow!
Yeah,
Bet she was dragging it at the end, wasn't she?
yeah, she was a trooper. That was a
Uh,
long day.
so, had you done any physical preparation? Because you say you've been planning for 25 years. You hadn't been physically working out ready to go for 25 years, had you?
No, I not like completely a couch potato. So I was walking to work. We would go hiking on the weekends. It was pretty active normally. I wouldn't say it was in the best of shape, but I wasn't in the worst of shape either.
Right.
And especially once I did decide to do this, I had 6 weeks, and I tried to walk more, like extra. I would take the stairs at work instead of
All right.
you know taking the elevator and like stuff like that. But I mean, I wouldn't say I was in the best shape.
So you told us about your first night alone, but I think
Hmm.
your camping first night, you said there are about 50 people at the shelter.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
What was that like?
At the Smokies in April were jam packed with roof hikers,
Oh, I bet it
and there
was.
were so many people at the shelter the first night. It was a little overwhelming.
But so you stay in your tent because I think once it gets past about 12 in the shelter, you can then stay in your tent, can't you? Yeah,
Right.
yeah, no problem at
Yeah.
all. And so the idea, when did you actually get that niggling feeling that perhaps you should carry on? Was there a moment you're walking along and somebody says something or you see something, you think I can actually do this?
I was really enjoying the Smokies. We had good weather, and I was loving it, and I didn't want to stop. And the friends I was with, I was blowing past them, and they
Oh,
were like, "Oh, you were like meant to do this." Like they
I
they
think that'll
were
always encourage you, wouldn't it? When someone else says
yeah,
that, yeah.
they were very like encouraging by saying like, "Oh, you have to keep going because you've got the motivation." I was going up the hills and passing them like nothing. So,
It must have been in your mind, though, even when you started, then, I suppose, that this was
yeah.
something you kind of thought you would like to do. And did you carry on alone, or did one of them go with you, or did you just meet up with some people?
I just started by myself, and I eventually was just meeting people along the way, yeah, as everyone does. So,
And when we spoke before, you told me that there were several times that you wanted to quit. What brought those times about? Because this having been an ambition for so long, I would have
yeah.
thought the idea of quitting would have been anathema to you.
Well, physically, it wasn't the physical part that was making me want to quit. It was the heat. It was really, really hot, and I was not able to put in the miles, and I was just overheating. I was having to carry so much water,
Sure.
extra weight, and it was just draining on me. And so the heat made me want to quit, but I carried on. I eventually, everybody was encouraging me, like, "You're doing great, made it this far, you can do it." So once in, where the heck were we? Um, I think we were like near Duncannon or something like that. I took like 4 days off, and I thought like I don't want to get back on the trail.
Oh, wow.
But I eventually did. I eventually got back on, and I got back to with the people who I had been with, kind of hiking along, and so we went back to our
What is it about this
supporting each
trail?
other.
We've all had those moments where we really struggle and just we want to go home, we want to sleep in a bed and flush the toilet.
Yep.
But there's something about it that makes you keep going. Were you enjoying the rest of it and you just were just not enjoying the heat? Because there's no point in going back on if you're not enjoying it.
Yeah, I was enjoying the journey. I was enjoying the people I was meeting and the camaraderie we all had together, and I loved the like campfires at night and just like the actual sleeping in the tent. I didn't really get that good of a sleep in the tent, to tell you the truth.
No, never,
It's
never.
not all that comfortable. I never really
Try a hammock.
slept that good.
Hammocks are much more comfortable in terms of getting to sleep.
I know. I think I would love to transition to hammocking in the future.
Yeah, you should go for it. And so, did you spend a lot of time by yourself, or you say you hung around, there were some people around and so on? Did you enjoy, which did you prefer? Did you enjoy being with a family or a group of people, or did you prefer being by yourself?
I like to mix of both. Like some days I really just wanted to be alone because you got things to work out in your head, or you're just in a mood or whatever. You just wanna like go at your own pace, and you don't want to chit chat too much or whatever. But then there's other times like you really want to be around people and see people and go into town and have dinner at a restaurant with other
Yeah. Oh,
people.
yeah.
Um, you know, and everybody kind of realizes that they like that too. They like the sharing your experiences with other people who are going through the same things as you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's funny, actually. I've always had sort of diverging views about this. I've loved spending time with people on the trail, and I've really loved spending time by myself. But this thing about, as you say, sorting things out in your head, it's a great idea, but it never worked once for me. I've done literally 12 months on the trail, having hiked it twice. I'd never worked a bloody thing out once on the trail at all. So good for you for working something out, because I never ever did. So it's great.
Well, you always have these things in your mind, like, oh, I got to figure out what I want to do with my life. Like you have these big thoughts, like, oh, I have to figure this out. But yeah, do you ever come to a conclusion? I don't know.
Well, that ship has sailed. I'm in my 70s now, so. So you carried on. You kept going. You wanted to quit, but you kept moving on. What was the latest you wanted to quit? By the way, you didn't think about it in New Hampshire and Maine, did you?
No. I think when I hit Massachusetts, I I felt like I was home again.
I'm
These
sure
were
a
the
lot of
mountains
people
that I
say that.
love.
A lot of people say that. Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband's from Massachusetts too, and I grew up in New Hampshire, so like this is our area and we're familiar with it, and I felt like I was home again, and I was on the home stretch, like I was getting closer finally. Because for a long time I felt like I'm so far away. Like you would look at a map and
Yes.
you'd be way down
Oh,
there and you'd
yeah.
go, "Oh my God, I'm never gonna make it up there." But I finally felt like, oh, we're getting closer now. Like I'm almost there.
I don't know whether they've still got it there, but when I got to Harper's Ferry the first time, I went in there and they had this map in relief of the whole trail. I looked
Yeah.
at where we were. I knew how exhausted I was. And I looked at how far we had to do. And I was looking a long way to the right. I tell you, it was a massive amount still to do. It's kind
I
of
know.
daunting. It's kind of daunting, isn't it, really? And you also actually mentioned you walked from from Klingman's. I can't remember its new name. I've forgotten it, but Klingman's down to the Knock. Did you then go back up to Klingman's and go north? So you've still got to finish, obviously, the bit from Knock down to Springer. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm planning on finishing that in October with the same women that I started with.
Nice.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
So
And
yeah, we're gonna
so in that case, you did finish at Katahdin. So talk us through that day.
that day. Oh, so as you know, like when you get to Baxter State Park, you have to check in and there's only 12 openings up at the birches.
Yeah. What if
And
you're number 13? What happens then?
well, so that actually happened. So I was with a group of 5,
Right.
and there was only one spot. There was number 12. That was it.
Right.
So we had to figure out what were we gonna do, and it's not like it was late in the day. It was like 11 o'clock in the morning. So everyone had got there early and got their spot. So we ended up having to split up and then meet again in the morning at the campground right before where you start going up the hill.
So you went to Millinocket overnight then came in?
No, 3 of the people I was with stayed at the campground right at the bridge.
Right.
I forget the name of that.
Abel Bridge. It's the Abel Bridge campground, you mean?
And then in the morning they had to hike up to the birches. So that was an extra, I think, 5 miles.
All of that. It's about more like 9, isn't it?
I think they took a shortcut. There was you can go up the Blueberry Trail or something, which is like a shortcut.
Okay.
So they had 5 extra miles, but they were all in their they were younger, like in their 20s. So
they can do that.
One of the reasons why I got the last spot at the birches was because I was got seniority because I was older.
Quite right, sir.
And then one of the other women, she ended up staying in another campground on the other side, and she got a ride there. So, she hitchhiked, so she got a ride up to her campground.
So you all met up in the morning. What time did you set out?
I think we met at 6:30.
Right.
Checked in with the ranger and started up right after that. I think we were hiking by 7:15 or something like that.
Yeah, and talk us through it, because it's epic. It never fails to move me every time.
So Katahdin, when people ask me what was your favorite part, I have to say Katahdin was the icing on the cake of the whole trip. It was the grand finale, and it was so hard. It was really difficult, and I'm a little afraid of heights, so
that's helpful.
It was mostly bouldering, the first part of it, and it was more like rock climbing than hiking, and so and then you get to that section, you think it's over, and there's a whole other section you have to do. Like, oh my god, it's not even close. So yeah, that was interesting. But the feeling that you got when you finally saw the top and you knew, I am a mile away.
Yeah.
It got emotional. It got really hard to put into words what you were feeling. Everybody up there was hugging and emotional and crying. There was the whole group of us that started together at the birches that morning. So there was the 12 that were at the campground, and then the 5 other people that I was with. So there was a huge group of us and cheering each other on. And luckily we had a bluebird, perfect, wonderful, clear day.
Nice.
And I couldn't have asked for a more perfect ending.
And that moment you touch the sign, and you stand on the back, and then you just get your picture. It's a special moment. It's one of those things you need to stay in the moment to remember it. And I can remember, particularly my second time, I can remember that very, very well. And also, I did say to people when I went second time, make sure you've worked out what your pose is going to be at the top of the sign, because otherwise you're going to end up with the crappiest picture at the top of that sign you have to live with forever. And yet I had no idea. All the pictures that were taken of me at the top in my second hike were absolutely awful until literally the very last picture my friend Trigger took. I said, stand to the side over there. And he put this picture, he did this, and he showed me his picture. I said, that was so worth it. That is the one. And that is the best picture that's ever been taken of me in my life at any stage of my life. It was fantastic.
That's awesome.
So what did you take away from this trail? It was something you wanted to do for such a long time. Did it meet your expectations? Was it what you wanted it to be? And what do you think you've learned about yourself?
Um, I learned that like I can do anything. Like if I can do that, if I can walk from Klingman's Dome all the way up to Katahdin,
Oh, yeah.
even more, I can do anything. Like that's far. That's quite a feat.
Oh, yeah.
And it's more than I ever thought I could do. It's a grand
So you
thing
say,
to
hang on.
think
So you
about
so you
doing.
did doubt yourself, did you, before you went? You could do it?
I mean, it's hard to fathom like how far that really is.
Oh, it is,
Like
yeah.
like you think, oh, I could do it, but once you're doing it, like you don't really realize like that's far.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I did doubt it, but I did it, and
Does your husband
I
see any
can
changes in
persevere.
you? Does he see any changes in you?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I physical changes, of course. Like I lost a ton of weight. I don't know. I definitely have like drive. Like I still work out all the time. What I wasn't doing before because I don't want to get out of shape again.
Sure.
Kind of thing. And
I always put my weight back on with interest,
oh,
unfortunately.
oh really? Oh
Oh,
no.
yeah. I go down 65, I go up 30. Oh, it's just a nightmare. So let's get back to that post now that we talked about at the beginning. I see that virtually all of the responses are positive. Why did you want to write it?
Because when I follow this page and I see so many people who are planning their trip and they get in the weeds about all the like minutia of like
True.
stupid things that they don't need to worry about of like where am I gonna how am I gonna get a shuttle and how am I gonna get food and like it you get food when you get to the towns and it's all on the app, it's all planned out for you. I mean, it's almost too easy sometimes. And I think people just are really nervous, about how they're gonna execute everything, which, is understandable. And I just feel like people need to be reassured that it's going to work out. Like you're not going to be left out there alone with no idea of how to get anywhere when the information is there. If you have the app, if you have the book, um, and you'll hear from other people like, hey, there's
Sure.
trail magic at the next parking lot, and so next thing you know, you're running to
That's
to the
right.
next
Yeah.
parking lot so you can get a hot dog.
Yeah.
And everyone kind of was like, "Oh, where are you staying tonight? Oh, I think I'm gonna go to this shelter." And then that's how you meet friends, and you or you can not go to that shelter because that person's really annoying and you don't want to stay with them. So that can be helpful too. But yeah, it works out, and you don't really need to plan out every post office, every box drop, everything.
Yeah, I abandoned those box drops after my first hike, and second time I just made sure I went to town with no food, and then when I was ready to eat, I got food and then came out. So now you've done this, and you've had this epic experience. You've seen, you've had the experience of a really hot summer this year, which is tough, I know, but you obviously saw some great colours in the fall, which must be great to go back home to see all that sort of stuff. From your experience then, what do you think is the most important advice you could offer somebody if they were nervous about taking this massive task on?
Oh God. Just trust in yourself and just have the right equipment. I mean, I do think that is important to have like warm clothing and the right shoes and the right backpacks, things that are the right equipment, but know that your body can do it. It's
Yeah,
possible. I saw every body type of person out there, every age group from, a 10-year-old boy all the way up to an 80-year-old man. So
sure.
it's anybody can do it. Just go at your own pace and you'll figure it out.
So I put this in at the last minute when I was thinking about these questions. I said, if you went again, I'm not saying you will, and you
Hmm.
probably won't, but would you follow your own advice?
Yeah, I think so. I would. Yeah, that is what we discussed actually. My last night that we were at the Birches, we all sat around the campfire and we talked about like what would we do differently if we could do it again. And I would, if I could do it differently, I wouldn't do it all at once. Honestly, I would do it in like maybe 3 or 4 month sections
Right,
because
right.
I think 6 months for me was a long time.
It is. It
But
is.
I mean, some people, that's the way they wanted to do it. Other people said like, oh, they would or would not YouTube it. It's like some people had really strong opinions about their YouTube channel and how it
Sure, sure.
enhanced everything, and then other people said they wouldn't YouTube it because it took away from their time because they were always spending time editing and all this stuff. So
Yeah.
like there were so many, and other people said they wouldn't change a thing. They just let it happen as it did, and um,
Well, I would have thought that as you were talking at the Birches, that it had worked out for all of you
yeah,
because you were still there.
yeah,
So why would you change anything? Because you got there. The
right,
combination of all your efforts you've done, you got there. I've got to say to you, I'm grateful always for the people who do video because I watch at least once a week. I watch somebody's finish on YouTube,
yeah,
and it cracks me up every single time. To be honest with you, I'm not always in tears, but I can feel their
yeah.
emotion the whole time. So I think it's wonderful. So keep on doing it, as far as I'm concerned. So what's next? I know you don't want to do another long hike, but I know you've got some plans. You fancy actually hiking something with your husband, don't you?
Yeah, I think we're gonna plan a hike of the Camino. And I'd also love to do the Colorado Trail. I'd like to do smaller trails, maybe 500 miles max. I'm not really
Sure.
looking to do the CDT. I know a few of my friends are doing the CDT this year. They want me to go, but I don't think that's for me. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
meet them for a little bit, but um, yeah, I think shorter. The
What do you mean
Camino
you
to
meet for a
me.
little bit? You would then carry on then, wouldn't
You
you?
never know. You never know.
Oh,
Oh,
dear. Well, look, congratulations on doing this. I
thank
know you're going to
you.
finish it up this year and enjoy that as well. And I really appreciate you coming on and sharing a story with us.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you.
Okay. Good talk to you. Take it easy.
All right,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye. I really like the way she started off with a section hike and just kept going. It kind of eased her way into the trail, and without her realising it, I suppose, she had started to fulfil that dream. A general message from the Facebook post was just not to overthink it. As she said, the trail is set up to help you along the way, and though I don't think it's as easy as Shelley said at one point, it's certainly true that many people overcomplicate everything. It's great advice to stay away from some of the noise online. I must say, I've seen a darkening in many Facebook posts on AT pages in many cases, so Shelley's post was a bit of a fresh air for me. As I'm recording this just 2 days after last week's show, I won't be thanking our marvellous donors this week, though you all know how I feel about you. Let's move on and meet Beth again as we talk gear. So we're starting our second set of interviews with Mighty Blue Class of 2025 members. This is Beth back in Stensham. Hey Beth, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
And I got the name right this time?
Yeah, yeah.
You think I know by now, wouldn't you? Really?
No, I get it. It's
And
long.
and the fact that you're on with me right now means that you're about a month out. Have you got a precise date yet?
Yeah, I think right around the 30th of March or the 1st of April.
Okay, so have you booked flights? What are you doing to get there?
We're driving. I'm driving there. Andrew hasn't booked
Really?
a flight yet, but I'm driving there, and then
That's a bit of a drive for you, isn't it?
yeah, it is. But then I can have my pickup at Raleigh, North Carolina, where my friend is, and then
Right.
she can come out with that. So
All right,
if she wants to
that
come
works
and
out. Then.
visit us. Yeah.
So I suppose the obvious question is, how are you feeling about it? No, just a month out. Are you getting excited? What are you excited?
Well,
are you nervous, or all of the above?
Should I tell you what happened today?
Yeah.
No. So I had my pack on, and well, actually, I've been hiking because I'm in Arizona, and ankle problems. And so
Oh,
anyway, I'm having an x-ray today, and Monday we'll see a sports medicine person. And I think it's fine because it doesn't hurt when I don't have weight, but my full pack is a little bit different, and just started kind of bugging before we go, I need to just at least get it looked at and made sure that everything's fine. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Well, the worst thing about that, of course, is if they tell you, if they say to you, I don't think I'd be hiking if I were you, would you then call it all off?
No.
So why'd you find it? Why'd you get it X-rayed then?
I'm just
you
wondering.
only got it X-rayed. You only got it X-rayed, Beth, because you want him to tell you the answer you want him to tell you.
That is very true. Very true. I'm sure it'll be fine. I just want to know if there's like a hairline or something. I don't think there is. I think it's going to be fine. I just think it's better to be safe than sorry.
And as a hiker yourself, you already know that, something hurts one day, it doesn't hurt the next day because something else hurts the next day. So let's move on for that. And we just put a little bit of an asterisk against the leg, and we'll find out in a few weeks' time. So like Dave a couple of weeks ago, we're going to be talking about your gear today, and you sent me your Lighter Pack list, but it isn't quite complete yet. What are you still missing?
I'm not sure about all the clothes. I don't know about the clothes yet. Most of it's there, but I think I'm missing a couple things like a pair of glasses, just tiny stuff that I just don't want to throw in there if I don't really need it. But if I need it, you probably need to throw it in there. So, but I do want to try to keep it, where I'm at, but we'll see.
So what's the base weight? I've got it in front of me. So
16 pounds, 16 and a half almost.
Nice. Yeah. I don't know, this has changed so much since I first did the hike, and my pack changed so much from the first hike to the second hike. And it was about 15-pound difference. It's an amazing difference, isn't it, really? Yeah. So, you should be fine. And the stuff that is on the list, that's dialed in. You're not making any changes to what you've already got there.
I don't think so. I mean, the only thing is a sleeping bag. I hate being cold. Hate it. I have a 20-degree bag that's a really good sleeping bag, but I have a 0. It just takes up so much space, and it's another at least half a pound, if not more.
Well, you've got sufficient amount of clothes to put on when you're in your sleeping bag. You should be fine with that, I'm sure.
Okay, good. Wow, good. Then I don't have to change.
There you go. Sorted that one out then. And did you buy much new stuff, or is this mostly stuff that you've had for some time?
Most of it's stuff. Oh, the one thing that's new is the I'm not gonna bring a bear canister, even though that's what I did last time when I was when we did the 2 weeks on the Appalachian Trail. Sure. There's this Atotech bear. It's like an Ursac, only it's right. Brand. And so I did just buy that not too long ago, and it's only 6 ounces. So, and then I don't have to try to throw a thing up in the tree and hit my head and
Which, by the way, is the second most exhausting thing to do in camp. First most exhausting is when you inflate without the flex tail pump, which I know you've got, by the way.
I do have it.
But the second most exhausting is definitely throwing a line up.
I just don't think I'm going to do it. So I'm excited about trying something new, it's supposed to be bear resistant. We'll see if it is or not. But
the problem is, I think the problem people have been finding over the years is that bears are becoming way more accustomed to hikers. I don't think there's much danger to them. There's just a pain in the arse in many ways. And frankly, you're going to want to see them. You're going to love seeing them wild. So, you'll be fine. So let's start with the big 3. You're going to go with the Z-Pax Duplex, which is what I've got. Right. And I know that you use that on our Virginia Triple Crown hike. Yep. What do you like about it?
Boy, it's a great tent, and it's fairly easy to set up. And the first time we were on the Appalachian Trail, we got rained on really, really hard one night. I mean, we got rained on every day, but hard one night, and that river just went right underneath me. I mean, and I just thought, oh, that's awesome. Didn't come in. I wasn't wet. So I love it. It's, the one thing that, I wish it had a zipper on it, like the new ones have the zipper on it.
Oh, right. I haven't seen that.
I kind of wish that it had that, and then the pole, is right in the middle, but I like it, and it's roomy, and I know I probably don't need a 2-person. It's roomy, and I like to spread my stuff out, and
To be fair, Beth, you're not exactly a giant, so I think you'll be fine getting around the middle pole. You'll be okay. You want to see a struggle it is for me sometimes. So, by the way, have you ever tried a hammock at all?
No. Well, I tried that one when we did that Virginia trip. I tried yours, just sitting in it.
That's right.
I mean, that would be great, but I like having my stuff right where I am and my back in the tent so that it doesn't get wet or get mice in it, or I don't know.
Well, I know what you mean, but funnily enough, you there's a little thing across the ridgeline of, I don't even know if it's the right word for it, ridgeline of the hammock that you can put quite a bit of stuff in overnight anyway. Mm-hmm. So that isn't too much of a concern. But you're going with the tent, and frankly, that tent was great for me as well. So.
Oh yeah. And Andrew is when we did the Appalachian Trail, just that 2 weeks, he did it on a hammock. And might start out with a tent and then switch to a hammock.
So your pack is the Gossamer Gear Mariposa, which is about 2 pounds. Is that a pack that you used for a while as well?
No. That's actually another fairly new thing. A friend of mine thought, I have an Outdoor Vitals that I really kind of liked, but at 25 to 30 pounds, it's a lot of weight for it because it's so light. And then I have a ULA Circuit bigger pack than I probably need. So I got the Mariposa maybe about, a couple months ago, and I like it.
Yeah, it's working out good. Yeah. And can you find stuff easily? Because that's one of the things you do get used to where everything is in your pack, don't you?
Yeah. Well, actually, the little net pocket in the back is actually really. I mean, you can fit a lot of stuff in there, and then the little pockets on the side are really good. And it's got one little zipper pocket in the very, very top. So it's kind of nicer than some of my other packs that just are, it seems like don't have that kind of extra storage or something. I don't know.
It's a comfort thing as well. I think, your pack has to fit you, and you have to feel comfortable walking with it. I've had a couple of packs over the years, and I've just some of them have never felt quite right. I mean, I've got Z-packs now, and I've worn that now for, now certainly for the last 7 years, never given me any problems at all. I mean, it's looking a bit ragged now, but and I think my trip to the Camino will be my last chance I'll be using that one. But it is a bit ambitious for an old guy, and I'm 73 this year, buying a new pack, isn't it? Don't you think? Yeah. I need to be careful with that. And you mentioned your bag rather is a 20-degree bag. I never heard of the Feathered Friends sleeping bag. Oh my
gosh. The 0-degree bag that I have from them is so warm, but it is, and it doesn't weigh that. I mean, it weighs probably, 2.5, 3 pounds, but it just does not squish down.
Even with those compactor bags?
Yes. It's like a big basketball. Wow. It is an awesome bag. I mean, I've had it out quite a bit, and it's wonderful, but it's just so bulky.
I would say to you that I've had snow in the Smokies in April, but 20 and I had a 30-degree bag.
Okay.
And I had a 7-degree night in a 30-degree bag, which, trust me, it was awful. But I put on every piece of clothing, and my legs started freezing. It wasn't just my feet. I felt like my legs were turning into ice, going up my leg as well. But you've got a 20-degree bag, which is a significant difference. Yeah. And you can just put more layers of clothing on if it gets that cold. Yeah. So I think you should be fine. But I always found it surprising how different it is at higher elevations. Because even though the AT isn't very high, you go from ground level to about 6,000 feet. That's quite a bit of difference in terms of temperature. So it's always worth watching out for. And so the rating's 20. Will you be cooking or cold soaking, by the way?
Cooking. I don't think I could cold soak, at least at first. And then I'm hoping that Andrew will be able to put the jet boil in his bag.
That's the spirit. So you're not going to count that as your weight then. Quite right.
Well, I do have it on my list, but I'm
I know you do. Get rid of it. So, and has he got all his kit together, by the way, or has he had to buy everything?
No, he's not a planner. He said, whatever I'll just bring the very basic I'll buy what I need to on the way. Okay.
It's kind of right. It's kind of right, isn't it, really? And what about your water filter? What are you filtering with?
Sawyer squeeze.
That's always worked well for me as well.
Yeah, the full one, not the mini.
Yeah. Now for clothing, did I read it wrong? You could check your list now. Are you wearing men's shorts?
Gosh, yes, they are.
Why?
Awesome.
Why are they men's shorts?
So like Jester had a video on her. She mentioned these shorts.
All right.
And they are amazing. They have pockets everywhere. And I love them. I absolutely love them. They're great.
So do the men's shorts have a woman's size then? Or is it just they're small?
They're just a small, yeah.
It made me laugh. I saw it, yeah. And as you know, I know you listen to my podcast. I've never worked out waterproof gear. And when I spoke with Dave last week, he said, "Well, I just get wet. I don't care that much." You've got an outdoor recreation raincoat. So is that working for you? I mean, or are you that bothered about staying dry?
I think I am at first. I'm not when it gets warmer, but I am when it's cold out. And so that's why I have the rain pants too, I think, because I can get cold easily. So I think I just want to at least bring them until it gets warm. And then
you're going to send a bunch of stuff home, I suppose, when you come to May, aren't you?
Maybe.
You never know. You might start buying more stuff to warm. And by the way, that is the other thing. If you find yourself too cold one night, within a day or two, there'll be somewhere you can get off to get another jacket or something like that. So it shouldn't be, of all the trails, the big trails anyway, this is one that should be the easiest to manage in terms of what you might need on the trail. So I wouldn't worry about that at all. Anything special in terms of clothing that you'd like to mention that you've got that you're particularly pleased with?
Not really. I mean, my Solomon shoes, I love the Speed Cross. And I've always worn those hiking. They're great.
I had Solomon ski boots because it's a European company, is it, Solomon?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Or Salomon. Is it Salomon, S-A-L? Or is it Solomon?
Yeah, it's S-A-L.
Solomon. Yeah, it's European,
Yeah. I'm looking at my list here.
And do you wear two socks, by the way, or one pair of socks?
I'll just do one pair of socks. I'm going to bring two pair, and then I think I'll bring a pair.
That. I meant those like in gingy inner socks.
One pair. I've always even on the Camino and stuff every day, just one pair of socks.
Right,
Darn Tough, probably, or Smart Wool.
And I saw that you don't have a Garmin, or I suppose you're probably comfortable being with Andrew, and obviously there's not.
No,
that many
I do
right
have a
places.
Garmin. Maybe it's not on my list.
Right, it's not on your list. Yeah, you're right.
Oh gosh, really? Seriously? Yeah, I got to put that on there. That's another 6.
There you go.
6 ounces or so. So I do have it, and it's a other one because that's what I bought a long time ago, and I would like to get rid of some of that weight, but it's a good device, and I wouldn't go out without it.
Sure. And do you know what I couldn't see on your list? Quite apart from the Garmin, which I couldn't see, which apparently should have been there. You don't have a chair.
I'm going to bring a chair and put it in my pickup, and then maybe I'll get it from my friend. I have one.
Is this your list of stuff that Andrew's going to carry?
Poor guy.
So, but you need it. You know you do. You need a chair.
That is great, but I was like, I'm really trying to think, what can I take out? I can get rid of some of my safety stuff. I've got a lot in that safety kit that I probably will never use.
You'll never open it.
I might take some stuff out of there other than
change it for a chair. Change it out for a chair. Yeah. Or let Andrew carry the safety kit and then get a chair. You'll be good to go. In fact, he can carry that as well. Is there anything you've got that you regard as a luxury?
Oh, well, the umbrella. I mean, but I love it because if it's raining, you can kind of put it in front of your face and you can eat underneath it, or I've.
And what about last minute thoughts? You know, you're a week out, you're a month out, not week out, blimey. you're a month out from your start. Are there other things you might change your mind on? Do you think?
Gosh, I don't think so. I mean, other than kind of getting rid of maybe some stuff from the first aid kit, when I go home, I'll go home to North Dakota before I go.
Right.
And I'm going to just put all the absolutely need stuff in a pile and the want stuff. And the one thing that we have that's going to be really nice is my sister has a camper van, and she's going to follow. I mean, she and a friend of mine are going to kind of go along with us for 2 weeks. So
Nice.
they'll be,
Oh, wow.
they can meet us
what a
at
treat.
like parking places, and things like that. So we'll have less food to have to carry, and we can swap out stuff because I'll bring all my hiking stuff, and so we can swap out stuff then. So so it feels like, you got somebody that's watching and
Yeah, all right,
and helping if they
it's
can.
It's a support team. You can't beat it. You can't beat it.
Yeah.
Well, look, as you know, I wish both of you very well. And you both seem to have had your gear sorted out properly, which is great. I never sorted my gear out till the day before I left either of my hikes, so I don't know why I'm that bad.
You are crazy.
I kind of am, yeah. And I've had so much lead into the Camino I'm going on. I'm certainly not ready for that either, because there's lots of things I want to think about with that as well. But I'm not worried about any of that.
Are you bringing your chair?
I thought about it, but I can't think I'd ever use it on the Camino, so I probably won't. But don't rule it out. So we'll see how that goes. But look, next week we're going to talk, as we did with Dave actually on week 2, about inspiration and motivation. You sent me some interesting notes on that, and so we'll catch up next week for that, and then we'll do whatever else we're going to do with the others in the subsequent weeks. All right. Okay. So good talk to you. Speak to you soon.
Good to talk to you too.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Both Dave and now Beth seem to have everything dialed in for the trail. Beth has done plenty of hiking, both before and since I met her, so the gear kind of picks itself for her. It also seems to me that there are going to be a few offloading options to Andrew along the way. So, great planning, Beth. Now, just before he heads out, I check back in with Dave with his final thoughts. Here he is. So we're back on with Dave for the 4th and last conversation we're going to be having before he heads to the trail. Hey, Dave, how are you feeling?
Feeling great, Mighty Blue. Good afternoon. The countdown is happening, and we're on the eve, shall we say?
So it's not long now before you step out on the AT, and I thought for our last chat we'd talk about a few things that you're looking forward to, and some concerns you may have, any last-minute doubts or thoughts, because of course, the next time we speak, you're going to be doing what you've been thinking about all this time. Where's your head at right now?
I'm feeling good, and I'm feeling confident. Those are, important, I suppose, if you're heading out for something like this. I'm sure we all have self-doubt, we all have concerns and issues, but you got to start confident. I think you got to start strong, right? I mean, yes, I'm going to take, I don't mean I'm going to come out and do 20-mile days. I've got the first 2 weeks planned out. I hate to use that term. Yeah, I hate to use that term because, it's hard. Yeah, it's the first contact of war problem, right? Plans are great until the first contact is made, then it all goes to hell, right? Or it's Mike Tyson's quote. I think you've brought it up about,
Everyone's got a plan until somebody punches them in the face.
Yeah, exactly. But I've done the first 2 weeks intentionally because I'm trying to make sure I keep my overall mileage limited to around 10 miles a day, ballpark.
Yeah.
And my wife is coming out to start, so we're going to spend the first 3 or 4 days together where she's going to be nearby,
right?
And things like that. So I wanted to kind of have some sense of those first 2 weeks. So
it's funny, confident. I was very confident when I went second time. First time, I had no reasonable expectation of being able to finish. I remember getting to Mountain Crossings, which is just after Blood Mountain, and I felt like I'd been there for years. And I still had about another 100 times that to go. It's so that I don't think you get to feel the scale of this until you start looking at a map and think, I've done about a millimetre of that map, and I've got about another 50 metres to go. And it's kind of a bizarre thing that you feel you've done all these miles to get to Mountain Crossings. You think, that's where I am. I'm just down the bottom of the page still. It's ridiculous.
I use the term confident, and let's be honest, self-aware. Confident is how I feel about getting on the trail and starting, right? That I'm ready physically, mentally, emotionally, things like that, plan wise. I'd like to feel I'm confident that I'm going to finish, but I'm not saying that my confidence is about the whole thing, right?
Sure.
You start with confident and feeling good about where we start, and then work from there.
And you mentioned the first 2 weeks. One of the things you will definitely learn on the hike is how to manage your hike. It's one thing, because if you can't manage your hike, you're not going to be able to finish it. So you have to learn that thing and be prepared to let miles go if necessary. Where do you think you're going to be then in 2 weeks' time? After 2 weeks on the trail, where are you currently planned to be then?
The Knock. So NOC, Nantahala Outdoor Center. I think it's the 13th day with 1-0. The 0 I'm taking with my wife right around Dahlonega. I think we'll go to Helen. Right. And then she's going to leave, and then I'm going to start from there. It does require a 16-mile last day to get to the Knock. So it's not critical that I get there. I can break that up. Some of it's just when I'm looking at far out and trying to figure out, where's the next shelter? Hey, Gary Sizer.
That's right. Yeah. Shout out to Gary.
Where the next, shout out to Gary, and the next tent site, and trying to figure out to make a reasonable day out of it. You don't want to have a day be 5 or 6 miles, but 16 is a push, right? But then I intend to take a 0 at the Knock, so perhaps it'll work. If not, it's one more day.
And you say your wife's going to be out there, but she's going to be following you around in the car. What's the plan?
So she's not going to be hiking, other than the first couple of miles from the scrubby little path.
0.9 of a mile uphill.
0.9. She's going to do both 0.9 out and 0.9 back. So let's and my brother and my sister-in-law and my buddy Alex are all going to be doing that first little bit. They're going to see me off. The other 3 are heading out of town. Jeannie's going to hang out for a couple more days in an Airbnb, and we'll meet me trailhead type thing. And probably end up for a little bit of slack pack. Not the first day. First day I'm going to Hawk Mountain, shelter. By myself,
sure.
Spend the night. The next day, she'll pick me up at the end of that day for the next couple of days, and then eventually drop me off, and then I'm moving on.
That'd be a quite emotional moment, actually, when she goes. It's almost like delay the departure off. We haven't talked about the approach trail. You decided not to do it for any particular reason?
Yeah, logistics mostly for the reason we just talked about my wife and friends going to be there.
Of course.
So I thought it'd be more interesting that we all drive up together to the trailhead, and get that little piece together. They'll be at the southern terminus with me. We can take pictures together, and then hike those first mile, 0.9 back, and then they're going to move on and go. So I thought it was more interesting logistically. We're going to get to Amicalola the night of the morning of the 4th, and we're going to hike up the waterfall area, the steps together, just as a tourist kind of thing to do.
That's a lot of bloody steps, let me tell you. I did that not long ago.
No doubt.
Go on a bit.
But I won't have a pack on.
There's that.
Right. So we'll do that. Spend the night at Amicalola, and then they're going to drive out to the trailhead, drop me off. And it will be emotional, but it's interesting that you said that. It made me think. I hadn't really thought about this. It's the Band-Aid problem. Is it easy to just tear it off? It almost wondering whether plans are plans, that I wouldn't change them, but whether we just say goodbye at the trailhead that first moment, and then she leaves and I go on. But then there'll be a couple more days of together, which is great, but it's just interesting. It's sort of prolonging that last goodbye too.
Yeah, I know I've sent you the show that's going to come out. So we're recording actually on the 25th of February, because I'm rushing to get 2 shows out. This one goes out on the 6th of March. You'll be on trail already by then, won't you?
Yes, I will.
Which is pretty cool. Yeah. And then the week after we'll be recording from the trail. And I said in that what's effectively last week's show that you were dying to get out there. Is that you seem quite calm, actually, for what you're doing. I get this sometimes where I'm ready to go and suddenly a calm descends upon me, and I know what I know now, and I'm ready to get out there. Do you feel you've got that, and you're thinking, I've got this?
I think it's a couple of things. One, yes, it's that confidence that we talked about, that I've got this. I think you're observing a personality trait, which maybe even your listeners will pick up on, is I'm a sort of low key guy, no super high, no super low. So I'm kind of even keel in that context. So I'm not super I'm excited, but you won't see it in me necessarily about, getting ready to go. I'm not nervous. And there's a third element, which we could talk about as it relates to maybe other things, is that once something like this is upon me, I end up with what I call an internal quiet resignation. Everything's, you've laid the path.
That's right.
Time to go walk it. It literally, metaphorically as well.
That's right. Yeah.
And there's been other things in my life where I've done the same thing, where you've committed to something, and whether you're afraid of it or concerned about it, once you've committed, take the jump.
So let's start on a real positive note, talking about things you're most looking forward to in those first, I don't know, month or so, in the first month or so, or 4 weeks on trail. What are the highlights you're thinking about? You've seen pictures of, or you've heard about? Do you think that's going to be a pretty cool thing to do?
Well, I think it'll start with Blood Mountain, falling into mountain crossings. I listened to your reading of the book, which I apologize for not remembering the title of, about the owner of the mountain crossings.
Oh yeah, it was a long time ago I read that.
Yeah. That was fun. That was a fun listen, just to listen to the stories of that. Yeah. So of course it becomes, like everything, becomes mythical. Now I'm not staying there. We're not staying at the Blood Mountain cabins. My wife's going to pick me up there. But I just love the idea that first walking through that one spot in the entire trail that passes through a delta, right? So that's it's kind of iconic and a little unique. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the 0 day at the knock, because I think it's going to be the first moment. There'll be a couple of resupplies prior to that, and a couple of quick town stops, but it'll be the first moment where you've kind of put quite a bunch of effort. You're a couple of weeks in, and you can bring it down a notch. Have a few burgers and beers as you talk about. Yeah. God knows I love a good beer and a good burger. So. I'm really looking forward to the knock, and then from that I know that you're kind of on the doorsteps to the Smokies, and so the Fontana Dam, Fontana Hilton, the things that
I tell you what, that hike going down into the knock is quite a hairy little climb down, but the climb up out, oh my God, that's endless. It just goes on and on and on. I actually lost my AirPad off the back of my pack on that one. No. It went down the mountain. So
it got there before you did.
It got there for me, and I never saw it again. So that night I had to sleep in a shelter with no sleeping pad. So that was not good at all.
Not fun, no.
And you mentioned resupply. We haven't actually talked about that much. Do you intend to resupply yourself, while you're in town, or you can get stuff sent out or anything?
No, nothing sent out. 100% resupply in town. If it takes buying stuff at a gas station, off the hot dogs that are spinning around next to the counter, yes. I'll do that as well. But my initial plan is I'm leaving with some dehydrated backpacking meals for dinner, and then to put together, as everyone else does, whatever you can possibly kind of put together. I know that'll change over time depending on where you resupply. If they have, not everybody has backpacking meals. So, but the goal is to just every 3, 4, 5 days resupply myself.
And I'm going to be interested in hearing what you say about going through some of the towns that have been affected, which will be quite a few miles into your hike, obviously, when you start seeing some of the towns have been affected. You're keeping up to date, I presume, with how the trail is. A lot of it's open now. So
we're down to 21 miles, I think, is what they were talking about.
And what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that 21 miles?
Okay, the AT says you're supposed to bypass it. We'll see.
Okay.
I mean, it's 350 miles north of the start.
Yeah.
So
it's quite
there's some time between there and the first closures. What I understand from Ramdino's discussions on YouTube, there's really only about a mile of trail that's technically impassable. Wow. So I think if you look at the map as to this closure, 21 miles, it's between Gap X and Gap Y, right? A couple of spots where I think they designated artificially a couple of road crossings and said it's closed from this point to that point, even though there's no mechanical reason in between. And there is a bypass. It's Iron Mountain or something like that. There's a reroute available around the spot which is impassable. So I'll play it by ear. I'll see what other people are doing.
You're going to want to do the whole thing, though, aren't you? Yeah.
I'm going to want to do the whole thing.
Listeners can't see him, but he's got this look on his face. He's saying something, but he's actually thinking something entirely different. So we kind of go with that. And have you considered the balance between hostels, motels, and sleeping in the forest, or are you just going to let the trail unfold as it unfolds? If you suddenly get tired after 5 days of bloody rain, you're going to want to get inside. Is there something that you're looking at in terms of hostels you want to visit or your hostels you want to avoid?
Absolutely. I want to visit as many hostels as are reasonably available. Not 2-3 nights in a row in different hostels, but just hit some of the places that are fairly well discussed,
Sure.
Both on your show and other.
Sure.
Certainly Boots
Yes.
Off and the places that have some notoriety. I'm going to start with the Green Dragon. I think is in Hiawassee. It's getting a lot of people talking about it, the Green Dragon Hostel.
I've been there.
I don't know if it's newish. Okay, you've
Yes,
been
they're lovely people, really nice people, and
yes.
they'll pick you up anywhere. So go for it.
Yeah, so that I intend to be my first hostel stop. Right. So I'm looking forward to the hostels. I'm going to take advantage of them. I want to be in hostels. I got friends going, why would you do that? And at our age and sleeping in common rooms with a bunch of snoring people. I was like, because that's part of the fun. That's part of the whole thing. I'm going for the experience and the people, the young people. I like the youngsters, the way you described them. There may be a hotel here and now.
You're a youngster to me. What are you talking about?
No, that's a relative term.
It is. It's definitely a relative term. Yeah. Is there anything that you're not looking forward to? You're just going to have to suck it up? Or have you looked at the map, or have you looked at certain things and think, I don't really fancy that, but it's part of the trail?
No, actually, there's nothing on the map that I go, oh man, I mean, people talk Pennsylvania. You and I joked a little bit about the rocks. I'm going to regret it, I know, saying it, but I'm even looking forward to that. And I won't be in the middle of it going, I hate these stupid rocks, right? But there's nothing specific I'm not looking forward to. In a particular location wise, I'm not looking forward to some of the things that people, we've talked about a little bit of the rain. I've hiked in the rain. I've hiked in the snow. I don't like them. But you put up with it, especially as it gets warmer, rain.
Yeah, you can't hike for 6 months on the Appalachian Trail on the east coast of this country, in fact, without getting the full range of weathers. So you're going to get everything, rain,
Absolutely.
snow, hail, and all those sort of things in between. What's the weather like out there now? You must actually, the 10-day forecast it brings you in, and not where you are. I mean, have you looked at what it's like out there?
I have. That's funny, but as you said that, you saw me look to the side. I can look out. I see my pool deck. I see the pool, and it's sunny and probably upper 60s right now here. I have looked. So I've been checking the weather on AccuWeather for Dawsonville, which I understand, Georgia, which is kind of the marker for Springer Mountain. And it looks good. It's been, as it got closer, I mean, AccuWeather has a 45-day forecast. Really, you can predict me 45 days out. Good luck with that, right? But now we're a week or so out. It's a sunny day, March 5th. It's been rain for March 5th for the last month, projected out for March 5th. Right. And as of today, sunny. A little bit of rain the day before, but not much. And so I'm excited to at least get out on a day where we can enjoy the weather a bit and take some pictures.
The weather varies so much in the mountains as well. You can see a storm 400 yards away and it's not touching you at all, and vice versa, of course. They can see you in a storm. Have you considered, and I'm sure you haven't considered not finishing, but have you considered what you may do if you get an injury? Will you assess it and see if you can get over it in a couple of days, or would you consider coming back and finishing this another time, or is this 2025 the only year you're going to try this?
2025 is not the only year I would try it. So we've talked previously about being a completionist. If something happens on a trail, injury, my first instinct will be to suck it up and walk through it, right? But that's, you got to be careful about that. So, you do. And I understand that. I'm aware of that. I'm certainly willing to take a day off, 2 days off, a week. At some point, if you're self-aware and assessing and you've been off the trail for a week in a hostel someplace and you're not getting any better, or you've had medical examination and they're telling you different stories, then we'll make the call at the time. I'm trying to avoid even thinking about that kind of stuff because, you can't, create your own doom necessarily, but I'd rather not, be in that mental space. Deal with it if it comes up, and otherwise ignore the possibility.
Yeah, manage the hike. I know there are days, and I think we've said this on the show, one day you wake up, something hurts, and then don't worry about that because something else will hurt about 5 minutes later. So you should be good to go.
Yeah. I know. I experience it even in my local hikes. Why is my foot hurting today? It's never hurt like that before. I've never felt that pain before. Then 2 miles in, it's like that pain's gone and something else is hurting.
Absolutely.
Like, what is it, moving around? Yeah. The same piece of pain, looking for a home?
Absolutely. Well, look, I'm so looking forward to hearing from you. I get back from the UK. We'll record the week beginning the 10th. You will have had, you know exactly where you're going to be on that day because you've got your spreadsheet. And
I do.
and we'll catch up then. But best of luck. I can only wish you the best of luck and on your way. And take advantage of our listeners' great generosity. They will help you along the way. So, if someone says, I'd like to give them some trail magic, take it.
I absolutely intend to, and I'd be happy to hear from your listeners and to meet up with anybody on the trail. I'm open to all of it. That's part of the fun.
Okay, buddy. Well, look, best of luck, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time out on the trail.
All right. Thank you, Mighty
Cheers,
Blue.
mate.
Have a good
Cheers.
afternoon.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Both of our class members have a quiet confidence about them, and though you can never be sure, I feel strongly that these two have an excellent chance of making it all the way and keeping us entertained and informed along the way. Now, I hope that's not the commentator's curse, but I really believe that. Finally today, and just before I pack to leave, Emily, having gone through the Mahoosuc Notch, has a hard time straight after the notch and that endless climb. I'll see you next week. Chapter 26, Part 2. At the north end, the four of us took a much-needed break. We sat on the trail next to the brook that flowed through the notch and under all the rocks. You could hear it babbling at times, but couldn't see it until the very end. At one time we could see a spot that was full of ice. It was mid-August and there was still ice. That's how cold it was in there. It was like having natural air conditioning. We filled up on calories and ice-cold water from the brook, then headed up and out of the notch. We only had 2.4 miles to go. Our destination was Speck Pond Shelter and campsite. We hadn't gone long until we were all throwing out F-bombs, even me. It wasn't unusual for the other three, but I seldom, if ever, used that word. It was flying free that afternoon. The climb out was intense. Maine just kept throwing more and more at us. It was gruelling. It was steep. It was never-ending. We thought for sure our 50-something-year-old bodies were no match for this section. Then, sketched in a rock on the trail was, this trail. We all felt a sigh of relief that it wasn't just us who felt this way. Over a mile straight up and 1,100 feet of elevation later, we came to the summit of Mahoosuc Arm. We were all astonished that certain parts of the trail, like the Smokies, Mount Washington, Mahoosuc Notch and the 100-mile wilderness, get notoriety, but none of us had ever heard about the difficulty of the Wildcats or the descent or ascent of a Mahoosuc Notch. Not counting Why Not's Fall, the notch was fun. It was the climb down to it and the climb out that was hard. But once again we prevailed. After 1,900 miles of hiking, we should have known better. Any place with the name Gap or Notch is the low point between two mountains and never a walk in the woods. We may have made it out alive, but that was as far as we decided to go. We cut it short for the third day in a row. We'd only hiked 7.7 miles, but those miles were some of the toughest we'd seen on the whole trail. Today we were even more discouraged than before. Each day our mileage was declining, we were getting tired, and our good friend had a terrible fall. The summit had an open, slanted area of exposed ledge. There was not enough flat space to set up 2 tents, let alone 3. Why Not attempted to hang his hammock in the shrubby alpine trees to no avail, so we all just unrolled our pads and sleeping bags on the open ground. This would be the first time and only time I cowboy camped. It was a beautiful night. The sky was crystal clear and there was no wind. It couldn't have been more perfect. But we couldn't fall asleep, even though we were so exhausted. The sun set the sky on fire, then it finally burned out and left a deep and endless sea of nothingness. One by one, the stars broke through the vast, empty space and filled it up. We lay in our cocoons on the hard rock, eyes fixated on the nighttime sky, not wanting to miss any sights. We searched for space debris, satellites and meteors. Sleepiness eventually took over, but I fought it hard as I struggled to keep my eyes open on the grandness. One eye closed, then the next, and I was asleep at last. I didn't think anything could top our presidential range traverse, but the night after the notch was the best night I had ever had. Was it because we had worked so hard to get to that place? Everything had lined up. We'd been discouraged about our lack of performance and shortened miles over the last several days, but if we would have stayed the course and not taken that extra day in Gorham or pushed on to the next shelter another day, we would not have had the experience of that starry night. I could have done without Wynot's fall, and I'm sure he would rather have stayed upright. But there's a silver lining to everything, and ours was that magical night on top of Mahoosic Arm. The next day we had a 5.5 mile to Grafton Notch State Park in Maine. There we helped Wynot hitch a ride to town. He decided he needed to get checked out and let his ribs heal. The girls and I hiked on to Fry Notch Lean-To for the night, then to Andover, Maine, where Batman will pick us up the day after that. All things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. Well, most things are possible with Batman who rescues me. We took a 0 day in Freeport, Maine. What a wonderful place to take a 0. The only downside is that it's 75 miles from the trail. But that's not an issue when you're married to Batman. After showering, we headed over to the LL Bean flagship store. Moxie needed some new shoes. Her sneakers were literally shredded. That's one of the never-ending and expensive challenges of the trail. Gear wears out. Maps and I didn't need anything, but we didn't come out of the store empty-handed. We saw these matching slack packing packs. We had to have them, so we each got one in a different colour. They would come in handy the next few days as we dumped our gear with Bruce and only carried a day's worth of food, water and a raincoat. 0 day completed, and by late afternoon we headed back to spend the night closer to the trail. We rented a camp. What a pit that was. I don't mind roughing it. I grew up spending every fall at a friend's hunting camp that was very primitive, but it was clean. This place was barely habitable. We went from staying at the Hampton the night before, with clean, crisp sheets, to a cabin that had mouse turds on the soap bar in the bathroom. The worst thing was that we had rented the place for 2 nights. We slack-packed the next 3 days. We looked quite comical. There we were, 3 grown women on this grand adventure with matching packs. Moxie had green, Maps sported orange, and I had my signature colour, black. We looked more like children setting off for their first day of school. The first 2 nights we went back to the pit of a cabin we had rented. I don't know why we didn't just eat the $60 rent and go somewhere else. In the whole scheme of things, what's $15 each versus risking TB or some rodent-carried disease? The third night of slack-packing brought us to Rangeley, Maine. This was a special night. Our son Stephen drove over to spend the night with Batman and me at the motel. It was Stephen's 21st birthday. I hadn't seen him since I left home in March. This was the longest I had ever been away from him. It was so good to see him. The 3 days of a light pack had me liking backpacking again. For quite some time I had not wanted to be hiking. I loved being outside, but I was tired of hiking, setting up camp, tearing down camp, getting wet and getting cold. I just wanted to be done. I wasn't going to quit, but I was not ever going to backpack again. A lighter pack and sleeping inside was turning my frown upside down. Stephen dropped all 4 of us off at the trailhead the next morning. Bruce was out for a couple of days with us. I remember when we were first married, he had no desire to go camping, and backpacking wasn't even a fleeting thought for him. But he supported me on my dream, and it didn't take long until he fell in love with the sport. As he was falling in love with the sport, I was falling ever deeper in love with him. I didn't know that was possible. I also learned you can love someone deeply and at the same time want to kill them, figuratively, of course. It was a long, hot 13-mile day. The humidity in air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. We camped just south of Overton Stream. We'd wanted to hike a little farther, but the climb out of the stream looked steep, so we decided to fill up our water and backtrack 100 yards to a stealth site we had marked out as Plan B as we went by it. It was a small, flat knoll nestled right next to the trail. The only thing we needed to do was clear away the tons of moose droppings before setting up our tents. There was only room for 2, so the girls shared Map's double tent and Batman and I shared ours. Soon after setting up camp, we retired for the night. I could hear the girls laughing while one was cursing the other in fun. One of them had made a smelly in the tent. I thought that was hilarious. A few minutes later, my breath was stopped mid-inhale, and I too was gagging. It didn't seem so funny now. Bruce had let out a silent but ever so deadly fart that just hung in the tent. I gasped for air, unzipped the tent, and hung my head outside. But that did no good. The air was so thick from the humidity that nothing was moving. To this day, I don't think I've ever smelled anything so vile. What was it with him and potty issues on the trail? It's a good thing I love him. The next day was filled with more ups and downs. We trudged on, and with every step we grew closer to Katahdin. We couldn't see her, but we were beginning to feel her. She was tugging and pulling us along like an invisible lifeline. The girls and I stopped north of the Carabasset River ford. Bruce hiked on. We had met a section hiker from Canada who had his car close by. a hiker was heading back to Rangeley, where our car was parked. Bruce had planned to hike to Stratton with us and hitch a ride back to Rangeley, but this seemed more logical and a sure thing, so off he went with a stranger from north of the border. Being flexible is not one of my strongest attributes, but on this hike I learned to be more fluid. It is almost a necessity in order to thrive on the trail. It's important to have a plan. It's even more important to recognise when to make alterations to your plans. Things come up. Sometimes a clear plan can avoid most issues, but not always, and a strong person can recognise when changes are needed. So Bruce once again became the hero and hiked ahead so we could go get the car. We would meet back up with him once we hiked to Stratton the next day. When we left Stratton, we had 188.2 miles left to reach the summit of Katahdin. Worst case scenario was that we had only 18 days left on the trail, not counting unforeseen injuries. In reality, we probably had fewer days than that. We could break the remainder of our hike down into 3 sections, get to Caratunk, get through the 100-mile wilderness and climb Katahdin. It was just a matter of time and putting in the last effort.